Welcome to Portsmouth This Week. This is being filmed on April 19th, 2013. I'm Jeff Rashard. I'll be hosting today. For you political junkies, we're going to have a lot of great conversation today. We're going to talk about two things that have got everybody interested in results. And with me to talk about those things, Representative Ray Gallison from District 69. He's actually representing Portsmouth, a small northern section of Portsmouth, about 500 people, for all of Prudence Island and the majority of Bristol. And also John Klimm, our town administrator, is with us, and he's got his oar deeply enmeshed in this issue. And the issues are, well, I guess we take them in no particular order, but let's talk about the Prudence Island Ferry. Representative, just in February, did you introduce legislation to create a quasi-governmental entity that would indeed take over the basically the finances of the Prudence Island ferry system, which is currently a privately owned operation. What motivated you to do that, and what's a little bit of background on that?
Well, I did introduce the legislation. My bill is House Bill 5600. It was introduced in February. I became aware that there was some possibility that the present operators of the Prudence Island Ferry were in the process of speaking with other cities and towns, specifically Fall River, as a possibility of operating the ferry from Fall River to Prudence Island. And they were, the land that they own in Bristol, they were in the negotiations with the town of Bristol to sell that land.
This is the land that they own is the parking lot and the
parking
pier?
lot and the dock.
The dock.
Now, those negotiations were in executive session with the town of Bristol. And there were some things on a blog saying that the present operators were saying, well, we are tired, we're getting out of it, we're going to retire. I guess there's been some situations, some problems they've had in the past with the Public Utilities Commission.
So they are supervised presently by the Public Utilities Commission?
Presently they are, well, the Division of Public Utilities, not the Public Utilities Commission itself. There's two different governmental bodies. There's the Public Utilities Commission and the Division of Public Utilities and Carriers. Yes. And that's the one that they're controlled by as far as rates and things like that, and just basically the operation. So when I became aware of that, I looked at this as, what do I do to try to help the people on Prudence Island? If one day or a couple of days, one of the operators decided that they're not going to operate the ferry to Prudence Island, they tie the boat up, how do we get people back and forth? This is a very important public need that those people on Prudence Island get back and forth. So John and I were supposed to be meeting in January, but unfortunately, to discuss this issue, but unfortunately on the day that we were supposed to meet, my grandmother passed away.
Sorry to hear that.
So we could not meet, and then we were heavily into the session at that time. We had bills that had to be filed by a certain deadline. In fact, the bill that I did file, I had to get permission from the House to actually put it in because I missed the deadline.
Because the timing.
The timing.
Okay.
So the bill is there. And the bill is in the House Finance Committee right now because the bill has a fiscal impact, not only to the people, the fact of people going back and forth, but to the town of Portsmouth and to the town of Bristol. Now, the situation with the purchase of the land by the town of Bristol, it is an executive session. So I had very little input, little knowledge of that, other than what the town administrator in Bristol had told me. Yes, they were considering.
How does the impact of the sale of that land in Bristol continue the ferry service as it's presently constructed? Well, as I understand it, the owner owns all the equipment, the ferries, the docks, the piers, the parking lot. Everything is in the family name. So it is. Literally, if a piece of it goes out, they agree to sell that piece, which creates financing for them. Is that money that could go into the operation, or is that going into the family endowment?
That's a good question. It could potentially go into the family. I don't know how it's owned. I don't know what the ownership is, if it's owned by an individual personally or by the ferry company. But I believe it's the individual personally. So that money does not have to go into the operation of the ferry. Right. So on Monday, this past Monday, there was a meeting in Bristol, and it was said by Councilman Herreshoff that yes, there were negotiations, and that the town, if the town purchases the property, they would purchase not only the parking lot, but they would also purchase the dock and keep the dock open for ferry operation.
Mm-hmm.
The town administrator corroborated that, saying yes, the ferry dock would be kept open, but he went further to say that once the town owns it,
It's off the tax roll.
and well, it's off the tax roll, and then how do they maintain it?
Right.
There may be a situation.
Public Works.
Well, but they may have to have monies to upgrade it.
Sure.
So that means that whoever operates the ferry out of Bristol, because they want the ferry to stay in Bristol, whoever operates the ferry out of Bristol would have to have may have to have a pay somewhat. There may be a fee to dock there because they need to maintain it.
Sure.
But there's also another situation where the town of Bristol could itself apply for federal grants, which they've done along the waterfront to make improvements, and that could be another possibility. So if the ferry service, right now as we sit here today, I'm confident that ferry service will be operating from Bristol. Now whether it's a private company or a public entity, a quasi-public entity similar to the Rhode Island Public Transit Authority, similar to what is the Airport Corporation, that this public entity would be there to protect the citizens of Prudence Island, the citizens of Portsmouth, and the citizens of Bristol, to make sure that there was ferry service there.
Yeah, let me ask John, the organization, there's no formal town organizational group, committee or whatever, but I understand from reading that there is a committee of citizens on Prudence Island who have banded together to have a voice, a unified voice. Is that?
Yes, there is
What is that
a
all?
Prudence Island Planning Commission that has taken a leadership role under the leadership of Harry Sterling. And from that group, a smaller working group has been meeting ever since, I'm going to say last September or so.
Have they been talking to the owners or you, the town, Bristol, Representative Gallagher?
They clearly
Who are
have
they
been talking to
talking
us.
to?
We have made several trips out to Prudence Island to meet with the working group. You know, the genesis of this, as it relates to Town Hall, is that we have had several visits from the good folks that presently run the ferry. And it has been clear in those conversations that at some point in the near future they're contemplating retirement or
Well, they've been at
leaving
it
or
for
whatever.
40 years or something?
It has been a long, so that's not really unusual. My conversations with Representative Gallison have made it very clear that he understands that in all of this we have to keep in mind that this is the lifeline, this is the umbilical cord for the citizens of Prudence Island, that if for whatever reason that service were to end, that the quality of life out there would be significant and materially impacted, as would their property values in other aspects of this as well. So in all of this, and it is becoming more and more controversial and becoming a larger issue, I've found Representative Gallison's singular focus on trying to make sure that no matter what happens, that our citizens over there in Prudence Island don't wake up one morning and find out that there's no ferry service. And so for that, I give him, as a member of our legislative delegation, a tremendous amount of credit. He even has withstood some, I think, unfair criticism in terms of his role in this.
Yeah,
And
I've
I know,
read a lot in the blogs.
yes, I know because I've been involved with
Yeah.
it, that he has been singularly interested in trying to make sure there's a long-range solution here. And it is a complex issue. There's there's aspects of this that
Is one of the reasons it's so confrontational, I guess is just as good a word as any, is that there is an impression that we're going from public ownership to governmental ownership, or the private ownership to governmental ownership of an entity. And for all the good fiscal conservatives in Bristol, they say, well, Representative, we don't really like that idea. Government doesn't always solve the problems. Why can't we keep it private? And the comeback was, well, if you go with this legislation, then the PUC maybe is not in the game controlling rates, and rates can be set that keep this new entity financially sound and as a nonprofit. How does that work?
There would be a quasi-public governmental agency.
Right.
it would be, individuals would be appointed from the town of Portsmouth. There would be 3 from the town of Portsmouth and 2 from the town of Bristol. And I'm specifically, so it would be 5 people, and I specifically said in the legislation 1 had to be from Prudence Island, at least 1. Yep. Doesn't mean that all 5 can't be from Prudence Island. But the important thing is that somewhere along the line, someone has to have the authority of providing the service to Prudence Island. And if this quasi-governmental agency is there, they would control the rate setting. They would be able to go and go to the federal government and apply for federal grants. They would, and I don't think that they would need to have the redundancy of going to the Public Utilities Commission. They would have that total authority. It's done in other areas now that the authority has the total control. For example, if you look at the Martha's Vineyard Steamship Authority, they have total control. They set the rates. The commissioners that are appointed there, they report to the people. And basically, this is what I envision, that they would be, the appointees would be accountable to the town council.
Okay, and they're not state employees?
No.
So they're not governed by the...
No. They would be totally appointed by the towns of Bristol and Portsmouth, the town councils. So they would have the authority to do that. And if given them that authority, they're the ones that would have, if they're from people from Prudence Island, they're the ones that are most concerned about it. So
there's a bunch of us who are very worried about, for instance, these independent fire districts, which are quasi-governmental units. We've got them scattered all over. People think of Rhode Island as 39 cities and towns. That's not the way it is here. I mean, I served 3 years on the Portsmouth Water and Fire District Board. There's a quasi-governmental, unsupervised by the PUC. You know, up to 4 people can set the rate for water.
But it sounds like you're making an assumption that if there were to be an authority created, that authority would necessarily operate the ferry. That decision hasn't been made, and the whole point is that whatever we do, I'm in total agreement with Representative Gallison, that we've got to shift the decision-making capacity to the citizens of Prudence Island. It's their future and whatever. I've had a great relationship with the owners of the ferry, and it's been respectful, and I have an ongoing relationship with them. But at some point, they're going to decide what they're going to do.
It's a business.
Absolutely, and the citizens of Prudence are going to be impacted by that. And what the representative is saying is that how can we change the dynamic so the future of Prudence Island is in the hands of the citizens of Prudence Island? And this transit authority proposal is just one of several. I mean, there was talk at our community meeting about them creating some type of corporation and running it themselves as an island.
So this sounds like this is an ongoing conversation, that there is, the public deliberation is ongoing. I get the impression that you thought that because of timing, you put your bill in as a safeguard.
Definitely.
But maybe there wasn't enough public deliberation to keep the wolves at bay?
No, the bill could go in, and it's not like the appointments would have to, if it were passed, and the legislation, my bill is in the House, Senator Arniano has the same bill, the companion bill in the Senate. Those bills pass, they go to the governor for signature. He signs it, puts it into law. Doesn't mean that the next day that all of a sudden this authority is going to step in and begin operating.
Your session is over in June?
Well, right now I'm hearing that the Senate President wants to get out in the first week in June.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's going to happen, because we have the budget, the way we operate the budget. We have a revenue estimating conference that will come in on May 10th. And then we'll see what the figures are. So we could be there till the end of May.
So you've got to get this through committee.
Right. If it has to go through committee, then through the House floor.
Have you any sense, did you have a majority of that committee? Is the House Finance Committee?
We haven't had a hearing on it yet. It hasn't been heard in committee yet, and it hasn't been heard in committee.
And you're vice chair of that committee, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Okay. Yes, I am. And so putting the public entity there would allow it to begin the process. And I think that's the important thing, is that the process begins more with the public input once the committee's there. And then you could come back to the next section and could amend the law. But it's not like the authority would take over the next day, because they don't have the funding to do that. They don't have the funding to say we're going to retain the services of XYZ company to
But if
operate the ferry.
if the town of Bristol owns the dock and the parking lot, who owns the boats? Who owns the ferries?
Well, the permanent ferry operator would still be able to operate out of Bristol, according to what I heard the other day, even if this legislation goes in. And it's not like then the authority would begin the process of determining, all right, is the present operator going to go out of business, and are they going to take over? Are they going to retain their services on some type of a basis? I don't know. Contractual basis. Are they going to go out and contract with someone else? How are they going to do that? Those are all the things that the authority would have the decision-making process to do, and that would be all in the public meetings. All of that would happen.
Mm-hmm. Right now, as a private company, they really only talk to the zoning laws. I mean, they can operate any way they want to, I guess, based only on the zoning laws. So,
well, they are under the purview of the
PUC.
Under the state for rates and what have you. So
And I guess
there is some oversight.
Talking to them a little bit is the rub was the rate structure's got to make it profitable to stay in business. If it's not profitable, no business stays in business.
And that's why.
And we ought to be in Rhode Island interested in business.
Exactly.
Because it's the economy. Somebody very famous said that.
But if this authority would not be in the business of making a profit, so therefore it could be more beneficial to those people that use the ferry.
Yeah. So the rate structure could be consistent.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very good. So the plan for the future is that I guess you're working to get enough votes in committee to get to the House for a vote, and Chris Odiano will do the same in the Senate, and at some time before the first week in June, we should have some sense of whether this will resolve legislatively or it will continue as a discussion in the town of Bristol and Portsmouth.
Exactly. But there's another meeting that the Islanders are having on the 21st.
Okay.
And I guess the Prudence Island Planning Commission may be coming out with a recommendation. So we're waiting to hear what that recommendation is.
Okay. How does the average citizen, those folks that are viewing us right now, keep up to speed with this? I mean, are there websites, bloggers, the town website? I mean, where do you go to get the latest and greatest information, or is it strictly social media?
Well, right now, because the public hearing has not been set on the bill, the legislation. The best place I've been going on is the Heard Around the Dock on Prudence Island and on the blogs to get the feedback from people. And then I know I had an email come in on I believe it was last Sunday from Mr. Sterling, and I responded to that email. So I think John's the same way.
Yeah. And there's been quite a bit of local press in the local newspapers, and as well the people most impacted. Ray and I went over several weeks ago, and there was a large crowd, and I suspect that'll be the same case at this next meeting or whatever. So Prudence Island folks are participating in the process, and I'm sure that'll continue.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty complex business. The daily commuting population is down to 8 or 9 people, but in the summertime, this ramps up big, and there's government over there, and if you like to hunt deer, you don't want to swim over there. So it is however it got to be what it is. The initial effort of putting people on that island, who was running the first ferry operation? Was it?
According to what Halsey Haberstroh from Bristol said, it was his grandfather that began the ferry many years ago, and it evolved from there, from going back and forth. And then I guess the Luther Blount at one time owned it, and the present company purchased it from Blount, and has been operating for some 30 years now.
Okay, great. Listen, we've got about 10 minutes to our program left, and I really would like everybody to hear where you are with the tolls at this point. I know that all of Portsmouth, all 4, after the gerrymandering happened, we have 4 representatives, which is really quite good. I mean, percentage-wise, we have influence, I guess, and 1 senator. So there are 5 of you who represent the interests of Portsmouth and Tiverton and Bristol and all the people that are going to be impacted with a toll decision. Now, I understand that toll authorities come out with a rate schedule, and that's what they have to do because that's their guidance. However convoluted it may appear at first glance, nevertheless. I guess on the 25th of this month there was a sign right in front of Clements reminding everybody to show up for a hearing. Finance Committee,
Yes.
once again, and that's your gang, to talk and listen, postulate about the tolls. What do you see happening moving forward here? Is there a chance to strip this out of the last budget?
I am optimistic that we can. Okay, and I think the public support has been very, very crucial, and it's let the people upstate, who sometimes forget about what an economic engine this area of Rhode Island is. And I've been vehemently opposed to the tolls ever since when Director Ankner, from the former director of DOT,
Right. It's a while ago.
he proposed the tolls when we was first contemplating constructing the Noosakana River Bridge, and then when Governor Chafee was had Director Capaldi there, that's when I actually had a law passed prohibiting tolls on the Noosakana River Bridge, which was overturned, if you will, or rescinded by the last budget, the last article that was in the budget allowing the tolls. So on the 25th, we will be having a hearing in the House Finance Committee. I hope everyone does come. We will have a hearing, and we'll be there as long as we need to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. But I also think that people ought to write letters to the governor, because at this point in time, if we are not successful, the governor still controls the Bridge and Turnpike Authority, and he could rescind them setting tolls on the Noosakana River Bridge, because the jurisdiction of the separation of powers puts all of that control under him. And I've been telling people to do that, to let him know, because it's going to be a major negative impact on the whole area if these tolls go in. We're going to do everything we can to stop them. I know that the town of Portsmouth is considering a lawsuit, which so I wholeheartedly support. But there are other things in there that we're going to try to do, not only in the House but also the Senate, trying to do look at some other areas of funding to try to make sure that the bridge that there are no tolls on the bridge.
Yeah, it seemed to me that there were some discussions of alternative funding that had some possibilities to it. John, the legal action.
Yes, it's coming before the council Monday night for their consideration. We're using a comprehensive approach here, and I cannot say enough about the Herculean effort of our legislative delegation, because the numbers are against them. There are more reps that aren't as impacted as our folks are, and yet they have worked night and day to try to develop strategies, and I just give these guys a tremendous amount of credit, both in the Senate and the House. But at the same time, we're looking at the legal aspects as well. And I agree with the representative that the citizens of this area have played such a crucial role, and we need them to keep the heat on, to appear at the hearings, to continue the letters to the governor or whatever, because they are making a difference. And so we're going to continue to work with the delegation and use every tool in the toolbox that we can to try to make our point.
Super. I've had a couple of occasions to go up and do the committee thing, and a little despondency in the sense that because we have a government which is controlled by the Senate President and the Speaker of the House, who can call and tell a committee chair that they just as soon not have something come out of committee, at least it appears to be that way, that unless you as a committee person have the majority votes in your pocket, they have said, I will, you can't counteract what happens. Because the president, talk me out of that.
Well, no, I think that the delegation from Portsmouth, certainly making our voices heard to the leadership. I mean, they don't become leadership unless we vote for them. Yeah. So, I mean,
that's
they have to.
That's an important point.
So, this is an important issue. It's extremely important, and all of the background information that we've been presenting to them as far as the economic impact. And one of the big things is that the Rhode Island Department of Transportation, in my opinion, has not done an adequate job to present the economic impact, even when they proposed it last year.
That's been a criticism of the STOP community.
That's correct, and we need to show that, and that's why we've had businesses come forward to show what the negative impact is going to be on, and the Newport County Chamber of Commerce has been very helpful. So that's what we need to keep up.
Absolutely true. John, the effort to keep the tolls off that bridge from the legal point of view, the legal arguments, I can't get into it too significantly, but the decision of the town council on Monday, based on what kind of logic for the legal standing of the argument? I mean, what have they done wrong that we think is
there's a multitude of avenues that our town solicitor, who really has done a terrific job in drafting our legal arguments, is pursuing, from them not having followed proper procedure to having fundamental legal issues being raised. And so this will all be outlined for the town council. The town solicitor will get into the major arguments or whatever, but he has really done a tremendous amount of research. And who knows? I mean, you know, if you ask what are our chances, it's tough to say. The representative, I think, is a lawyer as well, so he might be able to address this. But I applaud the town solicitor and the town council for their firm commitment to use a multitude of approaches to try to deal with this issue. And I'm pleased that Portsmouth is at the forefront on the legal battle.
Remember when we started this program, I mentioned that. Just love this political intrigue. There's a lot of things going on, a lot of irons in the fire, and a lot of wonderful people who are spending an awful lot of their own personal time dealing with this thing. And we have a part-time legislature. I personally like to have a full-time one, but I know that Representative Gallison is a working guy and raising a family, and
ask my wife how part-time it is.
Yeah. I know. There was a meeting scheduled. Was it today at 1 o'clock? No, it's the toll meeting. It's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But doesn't the bell ring at something like 4 o'clock? You're supposed to be there at 4. What is? So on that day, the committee has to show up early, get out of work.
At 1 o'clock, we'll begin the hearing on that.
How do you manage your regular business and family world when that ding goes? You have to be there. Yeah.
It's difficult.
I have the same question, because he's in town hall all the time.
Yeah.
Is the Senator Ardiano and the rest of the delegation. These folks are putting in a lot of time.
Well,
you can call it part-time if you will.
You must love it, because you've been at it since 2000.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and with no indication that you wouldn't want to be there for the next 20 years.
I look at it, I am proud of a lot of the bills that I've been able to have passed. Some of the important ones were making sure that people that had Lyme disease get medical coverage. That was a huge bill for people that have Lyme disease. They get the coverage for intravenous antibiotics. There's been a lot of things, and those are the things that really I'm really proud to say I'm happy.
Well, Representative, I want to thank you very much for coming and sharing some time with you out of your otherwise busy day, you know. And of course, John is playing hooky from the town hall. Who knows? Barbara Rip must be running things over there. Anyway, I hope those of you who have had a chance to watch this program understand that the town has got all the oars in the water that we can possibly put in it, and our representatives are trying their best to represent us. And thank you for watching.
To honor the founding of our town and its subsequent history, the community of Portsmouth plans a series of public events and observances over the course of the year 2013. Planning for these events has begun, and volunteers are needed to participate in developing and conducting these civic events. Join your friends and neighbors and help us all celebrate our 375th year.